Ang Pilipinas ay kabilang sa tinatawag na Coral Triangle sa Western Pacific Ocean, kung saan matatagpuan ang isa sa pinakamayayamang marine biodiversity sa buong mundo. Noong 1974, Pilipinas din ang nanguna sa pagkakaroon ng community-based marine protected area management para magkaroon ng balanse at responsableng paggamit ng ating yamang-dagat. Ngayon sa Batas et al., pag-usapan natin kung bakit nananatili pa ring malaking problema ang usapin sa marine conservation at mga pagsubok sa pagpapatupad ng batas tungkol dito. Panibagong araw na naman ng kwentuhan na puno ng aral tungkol sa batas. Ako po si Mencio Macapagal. Makakasama natin ngayong araw sina Dr. Michael Atrihenio, Assistant Professor sa UP Marine Science Institute. At si Attorney Claudie Mendoza, isang environmental lawyer at junior associate ng Pulido and Tiamson Law Offices. Magandang araw sa inyo at welcome sa Batas et al.
Magandang araw, Mencio.
Magandang araw, Mencio.
Ipaliwanag muna natin, kapag sinabing marine conservation, Doc, ano ang pinag-uusapan natin dito?
If we talk about marine conservation, this is about protecting what's in the sea, especially the marine biodiversity, the species that we have, the flora and fauna under the sea, and we have one of the richest in the world. Philippines is considered the center of marine species speciation around the world. We are the center of the shore fishes species. So we have historical data to show that like Verde Passage is one of the richest in the world. So it's because of our archipelagic in nature, we are island systems, and that provides a conducive environment for speciation of our marine species.
Bakit mahalaga yung marine conservation, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas?
We are a largely fishing community, if you look at it at a larger scale. 70% of our protein comes from the sea, and the marine biodiversity is our life support system. It's just the ecological services that we are actually enjoying from the marine biodiversity that we have. And we have to protect that life support system for the fish. So without those, very diverse aggregation of marine species, we don't have much to take from the sea, like fish. So it's very important we have to protect them in order to sustain fisheries as well.
Na since 1974, meron tayong mga community-based marine protected areas. May mga different classifications po ba para dito? At paano dinidetermine?
Yes. If we talk about marine protected areas in the Philippines, there are two types. One is the national managed, which is established under the NAIPAS law, and the other is the locally managed protected areas. These are established by the local government units.
Nagbabago din ba yung mga classifications ditong mga marine protected areas or forever na siyang isang marine protected area?
Yeah, it is a permanent instrument. When you declare an area as a marine protected area, if it's under NAIPAS, of course, it has to have an act of Congress to declare it as a protected area.
Although,
so it is permanent.
Meron ding provisions under the NIPAS Act where a certain area, if it is no longer suitable for protection, pwede nilang i-disestablish.
Yeah.
But that very seldom happens.
Okay. So when it comes to laws, what exactly are the laws that protect marine ecosystems, especially when it comes to biodiversity?
Well, actually, napakaraming batas na nagpo-protect sa ating marine areas. No? Number one, of course, is the Clean Water Act. Ito yung mga modern acts, no? Or modern laws. The NAIPAS Act or the National Integrated Protected Areas System, the Fisheries Code, the Wildlife Resources Conservation and Protection Act. Ito yung mga major laws that would protect our marine environment.
Okay, but over the years, we've been seeing so many studies on how we can protect and preserve our marine ecosystem. Pero at present, ano ang pinaka-challenge kaya natin? At bakit parang hanggang ngayon ay nananatili itong pagsubok, Doc?
The fishing pressure, as I said, we are largely dependent on our fisheries for our protein, and our population has grown that much. That, there is what we call malnutrition overfishing that is actually caused by too many mouths to feed, too many people that catch fish from the ocean. So there's competition from a very limited resource. So that has been the story of the fisheries in the Philippines. And that, especially when they use some destructive methods of catching fish. They destroy the habitats, they destroy the reefs.
Parang dynamite fishing,
Dynamite
di ba? It's still
fishing,
prevalent.
poison fishing. They resort to that because if they don't do that, somebody else will actually catch the fish. So the moment they see the fish, they have to catch them. Use the more efficient way of catching, like dynamite fishing or poison.
And it's also like a lack of understanding.
It's lack of
how this
understanding of they're oblivious actually to their impact to the environment.
Parang unahan lang.
Unahan lang,
Mauna ako.
yes.
Well, climate change lang nga ba ang problema o may kakulangan din sa pagpapatupad ng batas? Yan ang sasagutin sa pagbabalik ng Batas et al. Dito lang sa CNN Philippines. Kami ay nagbabalik dito sa Batas et al. Marine conservation pa rin ang topic natin kasama sina Dr. Michael Atrihenio mula sa UP Marine Science Institute. At si Attorney Claudie Mendoza, isang environmental lawyer at junior associate ng Pulido and Tiamson Law Offices. So, Attorney, when it comes to law enforcement, what agencies are in charge?
Well, basically for law enforcement in terms of marine conservation, andyan ang DENR, andyan ang Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources ng Department of Agrarian Reform, nandyan din ang Philippine Coast Guard, no, and other agencies like the local government, of course, in terms of municipal areas or municipal seas.
We mentioned nga earlier that there are still some illegal practices na ginagawa when it comes to fishing, like dynamite fishing. Paano po ba pag ganun? Paano mo hahanapin ngayon yung mananagot? Saan mo dadalhin ngayon yung reklamo mo? What can be done?
We encounter same problem in the Spratlys. I've been there twice. And some of the foreign fishermen, obviously, they just put their nets in there and bahala na kung anong mahuli. And malalaki ang mesh nila. So, usually, nahuli mga pawikan, mga sharks, even sharks. So, you won't notice them, you won't see them unless you dive. So, it just happened that we were there doing research in the area and we saw them. And then we rescued those that are still alive. But normally, they just die. When the fishers come back to retrieve the net, usually the fish caught there, that the sharks and the pawikans are already dead the moment that they get them back.
Pero under the revised fisheries code, di ba required na lahat ng barko ay merong mga tracking system?
May registration sila, may licenses sila, and everything. Kaya lang, in terms of enforcement, of course, medyo mahirap yan kasi malawak ang dagat, kukunti lang yung mga law enforcers natin to monitor these waters. Kaya kung titignan mo rin, when you look at our laws, makikita mo mayroong mga decentralization na nangyayari, in which case may mga community-based local government ang nagiging tagapamahala, especially in municipal waters. Kasi sila yung nandun, they're on the ground.
So how exactly do they do that? Yung mga role ng local communities when it comes to conservation and protection?
Well, in terms of conservation protection, of course, yung pagbabantay nila. And then, of course, they monitor themselves, yung mga kasamahan nila, so that they do not pollute or degrade the environment in the area. So, kaya mahalaga yun, yung community-based. Sila mismo will watch out for each other.
Pero paano if you are from a certain area and you feel like the authorities in your area are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to conservation? Saan ka ngayon dudulog? What can you do?
Well, when it comes to that, there are provisions din naman under the law which makes government or law enforcers liable if they fail to do what they are mandated to do under the law. So you can file cases against these people if that is needed.
But when we talk about, challenges in protecting the seas, we mentioned earlier, ang lawak ng dagat, di ba? Pero something that always comes up is climate change. Bukod sa climate change, gaano kalaki ang human factor sa problemang ito, Doc?
Well, if you talk about climate change, there's a topogenic aspect of climate change, where actually the cause of climate change, unlike in the past. Millions of years ago, in the history of Earth, there were already some climate changes that took place. But today it's different because of our, what we call it, we are the main cause of that, our emissions, like that. And so with the traditional causes of destruction of our fisheries and marine habitats, you superimpose the impact of climate change. And climate change, actually the scale at which it is it operates is actually it's global. So that means that there will be synergistic effect of whatever impact that we have or factors that we have already in existence in the Philippines with climate change. So it's more difficult to address biodiversity losses because climate change can operate at various scales, at various level of the ecosystem.
Pero paano yun? If these laws that we have will be implemented effectively, religiously, faithfully, pwede pa ba natin ma-reverse or ma-mitigate yung epekto ng climate change?
Of course, the scientists are saying that we have already committed to climate change. So whether we do something or not, the world has already committed itself to climate change. So what we are talking right now is just, the intensity of the impact of the climate change. If we do something to reduce carbon emission, for example, and then maybe just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius increase in global temperature, it will take place, and it will not be as devastating as 3 degrees or 4 degrees Celsius.
But they always say it's so difficult to implement all of these changes. What do you think is the most sustainable? Like something that is easily done, but most sustainable?
The shift, for example, in the use of energy, so renewable energy, the best step, I guess, moving forward, that is to limit our emission and putting more carbon in the atmosphere and causing, the temperature to even rise more. But that's actually very difficult because of our addiction to oil, and there is still enough oil deposit around the world. And economies like the U.S. and other countries are still, strongly linked, their economy is strongly linked to their consumption of the oil. Their machineries are still largely run by oil. So I think it will take time. But for small countries, and unfortunately we're the one that is affected most by climate change, especially the small islands in the Pacific, we can contribute in our little way. For example, even just, shifting our preference for car to electric vehicles, for example, that's actually contributing to the global movement to reduce carbon emission.
But we also have laws in the pipeline and also that have already been passed that move in that direction.
Yes,
Attorney?
yes. We have actually some subsidies for electric cars, subsidies for renewable energies. Pero I think one factor is that awareness. Everybody should be aware of the environmental impacts of our activities and how we can mitigate the impacts of climate change and how we adapt to it.
Alright, so tanong ng bayan naman ang ating sasagutin sa pagbabalik ng Batas et al. Tutok lang dito sa CNN Philippines. Salamat sa patuloy niyong panonood ng Batas et al. Dito sa CNN Philippines. Sagutin na natin ang ilan pang katanungan tungkol sa marine conservation.
Ano ang parusa kung may paglabag sa marine environment?
So in general, polluting or throwing garbage into the sea is punishable under the Clean Air Act. It's also punishable under the NIPAS Act if it is done in a protected area. It is also punishable under the Fisheries Code if it is done by fishermen and fisher folks. Other prohibited acts under the Fisheries Code naman, of course, is illegal fishing, dynamite fishing, which would involve, again, hefty fines. I think ang dynamite fishing would involve penalties, administrative fines in the amount of 5 times the amount of the value of the fish that you caught, plus imprisonment pa.
Narito ang isa pang tanong.
Ano ang palatandaan na may problema ang karagatan?
Halimbawa, pag pollution, no? At saka organic pollution, for example, Manila Bay is yung highly eutrophic ang tawag natin, yung nutrient load niya ay mataas. So, highly fertilized ang isang body of water. So makikita natin, green yung color. That means that more phytoplankton are growing in response to the very high nutrient load. Nakita natin sa Boracay, yung pagdami ng isang klase ng algae doon lang din sa beach. That's already an indication na na-reach na yung level of nutrient load na hindi na kaya ng environment to clean itself of the pollutants. We have to look at the problem in a comprehensive manner. Why are the fishers resorting to illegal fishing, for example? Siguro kasi dahil wala na masyadong isda. O kailangan natin i-address siguro ang overfishing. Marine protected areas may be a solution. We have to put up more marine protected areas and maybe some alternative livelihood for the fishers. They are too dependent on fishing. Maybe some form of skill development that they can also be access some employment outside of their sector, for example.
Kayo, attorney, kasi you also teach environmental
Yes.
law, di ba? So, you've studied these laws. What do you think can still be improved?
Well, we need to improve these laws. Although, sabi ko nga kanina, daming batas. Kaya lang, these laws are all intersecting each other, and that sometimes we lose the focus on which agency should, walang holistic approach as to how to conserve the marine environment. So, kanya-kanyang focus sila, like the Fisheries Code will be on the fishermen, and the Clean Water Act, the DNR. So, hindi sila coordinated. So, we need, I think, more coordination between all these agencies and all these laws so that they can focus actually on 3 matters. I think the first is, of course, the habitat. That is the marine environment. And then the wildlife that we have there. And then the people. The people who are there. Not just the fisher folks, but everyone, even the law enforcement agencies and the law officers. Because if all these 3 will come together and we focus more on these things, I think mas mapoprotektahan natin yung marine environment.
All right. So I know that we've discussed so many issues already today, pero meron po ba kayong mga mensahe sa ating mga manonood tungkol sa marine conservation and protection? Doc, we'll start with you.
We participate in our conservation effort. I guess we are what we call that gaining some traction as regard to establishing marine protected areas in the Philippines since 1974. Right now, the latest count is around 2,000 marine protected areas. We just had an award for an outstanding marine protected areas in the Philippines. We call it Para-Elmar. We do it every 2 years. And I guess it's one way of incentivizing, marine protection. And the community themselves are actively participating in protecting their own marine protected area. And by that, they are also improving their fish catch.
3 important things that we have to consider. The people, we have to educate these people, make them aware, and not just, let them follow the law because it is the law, but because they want to conserve the environment. Second is the habitat. Of course, we establish marine protected areas. And then, of course, for the wildlife there, we have to reduce, of course, the pressure on fishing. All these things, if they come together, we can be able to protect the marine environment.
Kasi less wastage, less spoilage
Yes.
as well, and bringing back a sense of pride to the people that are in the area as well. Alright, maraming salamat Dr. Michael Atrihenio, Assistant Professor sa UP Marine Science Institute. At Attorney Claudie Mendoza, isang environmental lawyer at Junior Associate ng Pulido and Tiamson Law Offices. Ako naman po, si Mencio Macapagal. Magkita-kita muli tayo sa susunod na linggo dito lang sa CNN Philippines.